Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bill 21, the euphemistically entitled Modernizing Municipal Government Act, purports to make improvements to the MGA, the large piece of legislation that governs how municipalities operate for the past 20 years. However, one section was left completely untouched, the section that permits the levying of minimum tax to the minister. Given the egregious and penal nature and unfair nature of the section and the penalizing effects it has on the owners of property of lower value, do you support amendments to end this practice?
Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very proud of the work we did on the, amending the Municipal Government Act. I've certainly heard a lot of support from the other side of this House in terms of that. In regards to the minimum tax, certainly, Mr. Speaker, there are costs that municipalities incur as a result of providing support to residents in the community. And Mr. Speaker, that is what property tax is about. And certainly they need to be able to recoup the costs of providing very basic level of services to those property, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to support municipalities to be able to do so.
First supplemental.
Well, Mr. Speaker, given that the application of minimum tax in some communities results in property tax payable actually exceeding the property's assessed value, and given that this practice seriously impedes the capacity for rural communities to be places of lower or those on lower or fixed income to find attainable housing, and given that this seriously damages the viability of small rural communities to the minister, why won't you at least consider changes that would end the practice of levying minimum tax?
Honourable Minister. Minister.
Point of order.
Point of order. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, as I stated, we absolutely have support for the rural municipalities to be sustainable, to be viable. They need to be able to have the funds to provide support to the residents in their communities, and setting a base low minimum tax rate for property owners is a reasonable thing, Mr. Speaker, and I continue to support them in the autonomy they have to be able to meet the needs of their residents and utilize all the tools that they have to be able to do so.
Well, Mr. Speaker, given that this government and indeed NDP philosophy in general prides itself on the worldview of redistributing wealth from the rich to the poor, and given that the application of minimum tax does exactly the opposite, why won't the minister take steps to restore fairness to the application of property taxation in small communities across our province and end this practice?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, the minimum tax provisions is an enabling piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker. It certainly doesn't force municipalities to do so. We continue to extend that tool to municipalities to utilize, and I encourage Albertans who feel that their municipality is utilizing that tool in a different way to work with their municipality to find a fair solution. Because, Mr. Speaker, we respect our municipal leaders, we respect our municipal leadership, and we will continue to support them to do the amazing work that they do to keep their communities healthy, sustainable, and viable into the long-term future.